Well, I think you got to say it's advantage, Manchester City. The fact that the reason that I had Arsenal up until this weekend was because I honestly felt it was in their hands. Basically they had to go to City and City had to win. And I felt that with what Arsenal have going forward, City pushing forward all the time is going to leave some gaps for the pace and the quality that Arsenal have. And obviously the Arsenal had the points. So I thought it was advantage Arsenal. After today, however, I mean, it swung the other way because now Arsenal are the team that's going to have to go to City and win the game. And the game plan is completely changed from trying to get a point and not losing the game. Arsenal have to open up and go and try and outplay City in Manchester. I just don't see that happening. So this result, in my opinion, has made it Manchester City's advantage.
How are you feeling after it, Dalen? What's your thoughts on it all?
We're in two different places. I feel like Stevie skipped onto the set here. Very, very, very happy. And let's just say I'm not doing well. Obviously, before last weekend at Liverpool, I think before the match you'd have taken a point. Given how that game played out, that felt like a loss. And then what happens here today, it's the same thing. It essentially is a loss. And when you're up 2-0, it's the little moments in the game. Obviously, like they're in cruise control and Partey turning it over. There may have been it looked like a flat. I thought it was a handball. Clearly, I'm biased with Declan Rice in the middle of the park there, stealing the ball there, which led to the first penalty in their first goal and changed the whole game. I mean, London Stadium was dead, and that's where this game feels like a loss because the last 2 weekends it's been a little bit of the same thing. We've talked about experience all year, how this team that doesn't have a lot of experience winning these games. Obviously, Zinchenko's played in some big games in the past. He's not available today. Jesus has played in a different role on a different team that had won a title, but there's just a lot of inexperience, and it showed in the last 2 games here, and that they had to have, and especially on the road up 2-0 against West Ham. It's a different challenge of being on the road against Anfield, but it feels against Liverpool, but it feels the same way. It feels like a loss, and I think Stevie's right now. It's City's title to lose. The bookmakers thought that before this weekend started. I liked where Arsenal's position was still in terms of the value with the points in terms of with the points and not having a game in hand, but overall they were still at plus money. So I thought it was a good bet. And now it's a very different situation. The bookmakers, like always, the big buildings in Vegas for a reason. Those dudes look pretty right now.
Well, yeah, it's always great to get that angle from you as well, Dalen. But just talking about that penalty there, Stevie, the penalty in the first half, was that the moment like at Anfield where we saw the moment where Granit Xhaka and Trent Alexander-Arnold clashed and it felt as though that galvanised the stadium around them? Was this the turning point in this game, West Ham's penalty?
Well, I mean, obviously it was a turning. Listen, it was a turning point for West Ham because they weren't in the game up until then. And Gabriel, had he just stayed on his feet, then nothing would have come of it, and it would have been 2-0. Personally, this is all about the penalty kick for Arsenal. If you're asking me, because this game's over. If Bukayo Saka scores this penalty kick, this game is done and dusted. The points are in the bag. So. Yes, the penalty kick that they lose, they're still 2-1 up. It's an incredible goal from Jared Bowen for the equaliser. Arsenal haven't been cut open in this game at all. Nobody sliced them open. They've had an unfortunate penalty and they've had a piece of magic from Jared Bowen. But the game was still in their hands and it was in Saka's hands. And if he scores the penalty, this game is done and dusted. This West Ham side is toast. So this is all about a missed penalty for me. I'm not kind of convinced that Arsenal's inexperience is what's happened over the last 2 games. Things happen in football, and if somebody said to you, you've got a penalty kick, the ball's at Saka's feet to take the 3 points in this game, you would have taken it all day long, and you would have put it down to nothing other than the fact that one man has missed a penalty. So, in my opinion, the penalty kick that Saka misses, no question, is the reason that they don't get the points. Because, as I said, he puts that in the back of the net. The game is done and dusted.
All right, Stevie. So let me follow up then. If it's not so much an experience, is it pressure? The fact that the penalty was taken the way it was, and what we've seen from the side that once that goal had gone in from West Ham, we had to see what response we were going to get from Arsenal. Is this that the pressure's getting to them? Is that what we're seeing?
you know, I can't turn around and say that the pressure was too much on Saka. He just took it was a bad penalty. He's just taken a bad penalty. I mean, Mo Salah for Liverpool's missed two penalties in 2 weeks with two terrible penalties. I mean, is it really down to pressure? I'm not so sure. Just a bad strike, not giving yourself enough leeway. Pressure. I'm not so sure Saka missed that because of pressure. It was a poor penalty. He hasn't been at his best over the last 2 or 3 weeks, I don't believe. I don't think he was particularly good at Liverpool, and I don't think he was particularly good today. Was it the wrong man taking the penalty? Maybe that because of the form he was in or lack of. So yeah, in the end, they made the decision to let him take it, and he's missed it.
That's
Yeah,
what
definitely.
surprised me a little bit there, Kate. Sorry to jump in. What was the fact that he took it? I mean, Jesus was holding the ball. Obviously, he's been in form since coming back healthy. I agree with Stevie. Saka's not been himself. He's been electric all year. He hasn't been as good the last couple matches. And when he was kind of milling around at the box, and then all of a sudden he walked over and handed the ball, I was a little surprised and a little concerned, just because I thought Jesus was going to be the guy that took it. I think he was holding on to the rock. He's been playing well, and it was a huge moment in their season. And that's, I guess, what's frustrating to watch. It is some self-inflicted wounds. It was the penalty, it was the turnover at different times, it was the missed penalty. There's certain moments in this game that shift this thing drastically, and maybe just shifted the entire title race, which is a hard pill to swallow. But I was surprised that Saka took it, and yeah, he didn't take it well.
Yeah, and when I talk about pressure as well, Dalen, I don't even mean just on Saka. I just mean as a whole with what we're seeing here, that it's a similar story to last week in different ways, obviously, but similar scoreline, 2-1 at the first half after they'd had a 2-0 lead as well. How do you think they're dealing with the pressure at this stage?
Well, I thought they'd risen to the challenge a bunch of different times, whether it was Bournemouth earlier in the last month, and then before that, United was the first game. Then in January, I felt like, all right, this team really believes they'll find a way to, like, getting that goal late, winning that game, and winning the game against Bournemouth. You think, okay, this team could be different, but you knew this was going to be a long process and it was going to get tight, and it's gotten tight. And I feel like when they've had the game in their hand in both these games, the last two games, when you're up 2-0, it did seem like they switched off a little bit. In this game, maybe more egregiously, I do think at Anfield, it was Xhaka just kind of firing up their team and their crowd. That was a stupid mistake, and you really can't have that made, but he did, and they didn't respond very well. In this game, they make a mistake. They don't respond very well. I mean, West Ham, most of the second half had created more chances, had put Arsenal under pressure, had a number more corners. It was not as the first 30 minutes were very lopsided, just like at Anfield, and West Ham played them pretty much dead even, if not a little bit better, the final 50 minutes, which is a bit of a concern. And Stevie, there was I think an FC show earlier this week. You were talking about your runs with Liverpool and switching off in game, but having the experience to switch back on and knowing, kind of catching yourself in the moment. I don't know if these guys have that and that ability to turn it back on, because it seems like once they've switched off, they've not been able to get back in the right gear to be able to win games that they have to win.
I kind of see it. I'm thinking of the first. I think there's no question the loss of Saliba, because, in my opinion, the penalty kick is a mistake from Gabriel, and Gabriel since Saliba's been out injured, has had to take over the mantle of the leader at the back. And so I'm not so sure Gabriel is the man that can do that. He's a good centre-back in the Premier League, but he's not your leader, I don't believe, and he's not the guy that's going to galvanise everybody around him. And the fact that he's playing with Holden, who's a stopgap, these are the kind of reasons why maybe things just go against you at the wrong time, because somebody's not a Virgil van Dijk at his best, or he's not a Saliba, so you're losing goals because of these reasons. And that's kind of why that's why I'm not convinced about this experience line, because I think at the end of the day, there's a flaw now in Arsenal's back line because Saliba's not there, because you're relying on Holding, who's not started in the Premier League, and Gabriel, who's a good centre-back in the Premier League, but who's not a leader. So I think you've got to look at all of these things as well. I just think the experience thing, for me, I didn't see that today, quite frankly. I saw a team that lost 2 goals. One, clearly, the first one was totally avoidable. The second one's just a piece of brilliance. That's an incredible volley from Bowen. The ball's, he's waiting on it. It's coming down from a height. He's got a great connection on it. It's got to be a good strike to beat Ramsdale. and then they missed the penalty. So that's why I'm not so caught up in the experience thing. At the end of the day, it's down to them. They had their opportunities. Gabriel didn't have to make that challenge, and he did.
Thank you very much for watching ESPN FC on YouTube. For more highlights, analysis, and exclusive content, be sure to subscribe.